And welcome to the Salem News Sports Writers Weekly Podcast. I'm Rick Moore, sitting in for Bill Newell, and very happy to be joined by the sports editor of the Salem News, Phil Stacey, by sports writer at the Salem News, Nick Giannino, and by the Gloucester Times sports editor, Nick Curcuru. Gentlemen, welcome, and great to see you guys. And how everybody okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah, we're good. How you doing, Rick?
Good. Doing good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Phil, I want to start with you with a leading question, if I could, please, and then we'll kind of branch off.
Okay.
Last week, I was trying to sit in on the conversation that had to do with Lynn Classical, Lynn English, and maybe the Lynn schools possibly leaving the Northeastern Conference, and I have not been able to get to that whole podcast yet for various reasons. Could you give me a little summary as to what that was all about? Because to remind people, the Northeastern Conference did finally get off to a late start thanks to that rally that happened in Danvers toward the end of summer, and schools are participating in, I think, every sport except football. But Lynn Classical, Lynn English, maybe Saugus, they've not been able to play.
Yeah, I mean, Saugus has been able to lately. They kind of got cleared out of the red later than most, but they have been playing some games as of late. The two Lynn schools in the Northeastern Conference that are currently in the Northeastern Conference have not been able to play. They've been in the red from the outset, which is unfortunate for those student athletes. Initially, and we're going over revisionist history here, but initially we had found out in late August that the conference had said, you know what, we're just not going to play sports during this traditional fall season. We're going to move everything to the fall 2, which is late February to late April. And we'll try to play everything then. Many of the students from schools whose cities and towns weren't in the red, voiced their opinion. Hey, we want to play now. We think it's safe. We think we can do this. Why not? There was some peaceful protests and whatnot. So long story short, all the schools in the conference that could play, which at the time was everything but Lynn and Saugus, voted to do so. They have had seasons for boys and girls soccer, for field hockey, for boys and girls cross country, and for golf. They decided as a conference not to have league champions, so to speak, Rick, or MVPs or all-star team. I mean, that's not going to stop us from doing it, but the conference is not recognizing them. But it gave those kids a chance to play, which was fantastic. I think we had, about a 99.5% success rate across the board. A couple of hiccups here and there, but for the most part, everything went well. The Lynn schools were not able to do so. Understandably, I think they were not happy that the league went on without them. If you buy into the theory that, hey, all for one, one for all kind of thing, it's kind of lousy when you see everybody else in your conference playing and you can't. Having said that, I don't think, and I've never felt that the schools that, in communities that were not hit as hard by this terrible pandemic should have been penalized because some schools couldn't. It's unfortunate, but where the majority were able to, and the weather cooperated, and it felt a little more normal, so to speak, to be playing these sports during the regular fall season, they went ahead and did it, and it worked out great. So, we moved ahead a little bit, and I think the two Lynn schools, and I'm speculating, I haven't talked to anyone from either school, where they are outside of our coverage area at the paper, even though we do cover the Northeastern Conference. But I'm guessing, and I hear from people who have inside dealings on this stuff, that they were not particularly happy about this, and maybe have felt for some time that moving forward, the conference isn't a good fit for their student athletes and the level of play that they're at and what they're looking at in terms of competition or opponents and, equal footing and things like that. So it was made known in the last 2 to 3 weeks that they had reached out to the Greater Boston League, which, as you might remember, Rick, was initially part of the Northeastern Conference for a few years. Those schools came in on kind of a trial basis before they were asked to leave after that 2-year trial. So now there's 6 teams in the Greater Boston League. Classical and English would make it 8. This past week, the GBL voted 6 yays, 0 nays to allow them in. So now it's up to the Northeastern Conference athletic directors and principals, mainly the principals, to vote on whether they want to keep classical and English in the conference for 2 more years, which is their right to do, or if they want to let them go at the end of this school year and allow them to pursue membership into the Greater Boston League. That'll be voted on actually a week from today, November 20th. We're recording this on Friday, so November 20th. My guess is that there will be little to no opposition from the Northeastern Conference. If classical English want to go, good luck to them. We hope that it bodes well for their schools, for their athletic programs, for their student athletes, and gives them the competition that they're looking for. And the conference would then become a 10-team league, with Beverly, Danvers, Salem, Peabody, Marblehead, Masco, Swampscott, Gloucester, Winthrop, and Saugus. And now you could have.
Whoa. Yeah, whoa.
That was quick. You didn't even have to think about that. That was like.
Well, I mean, hey, 31st year on the job, if I don't know it by now.
That's fair.
It would give them the chance to have 2 5-team divisions in almost every sport by power. So say, if it's baseball and you want to put Beverly and Peabody and Gloucester and Danvers and let's say Masconomet in one bracket and the other 5 schools in the other bracket for power-based reasons. And in girls soccer, it's another 5 teams in the top or the north, whatever they want to call it. I just think it makes it a little more even all around. The competition is better. So this really could be a win-win for everybody. Classical and English get into the league they want to be in with like-minded schools and like-minded competition as far as where the athletic balance is across all sports. And for the Northeastern Conference, you get the 2 5-team leagues, and you have 10 schools that want to be there instead of 2 that are looking to get out. So that, in a nutshell, is everything.
It sounds.
That might be a nut tree, but
yeah, it sounds dispassionate, Phil, and I hope I'm not covering territory that you guys did last week. But and it sounds like a great makeup in theory for both conferences. But as I moved to Massachusetts before my senior year in high school, and Lynn Classical and Lynn English have been so much a part of the Northeastern Conference since then. Is this a good thought-out move that's been brewing for some time, or is it a knee-jerk reaction to what happened this year?
Honestly, I think you could make arguments for both sides, Rick. I, like you, remember the days when English and Classical were powerhouses in the Northeastern Conference, and whether it was football or basketball or baseball, right? You name it. They were very good. But as more than one of my sources has told me, and again, I say it with the caveat that I have not spoken to anyone from either of the Lynn schools. Mm-hmm. I have a buddy who teaches in English, but aside from that, I haven't talked to anybody that has a say in what goes on here or makes these decisions. But as one of my sources told me, times change and things change with it. It wasn't long ago that, Nino, I know you're a little bit younger, but the 3 of us, Kooks and Rick and I, can remember Marblehead was the laughingstock of the NEC. Yep. Across the board. It wasn't that long ago, 10, 12 years ago, where they had, 2-win football seasons and couldn't get off the mat in other sports and just really struggled across the board. And lo and behold, things have changed. Gone the other way in Salem. Salem was so good for so long and so many things, and they've hit a rough patch lately. So things ebb and flow to a certain degree. I think in other situations, things change to the point that, we don't have as many athletes as we used to. It used to be a given that, let's say, Classical would have 80 kids on the football team, and strong and athletic and this and that. Well, now, for a variety of different reasons, it's much different. Some kids need to work. Some kids just choose not to play. Sometimes user fees come up, although I'm not sure that's an issue with the Lynn schools, but user fees pay, some families can't afford to pay $450 to play a sport and then do something in the winter and then do something in the spring. there are a lot of mitigating factors. Economics change, times change, and maybe I think the Lynn schools look at it, and maybe it is born out of recent events. But I think maybe if they do look to the future, they figure, is it really in our best interest to go up against the Masconomet's of the world, the Beverleys of the world, the Marbleheads of the world, or are we better off playing Somerville and Malden and Cambridge and schools that maybe are a lot more like ours in terms of the makeup and the core values that those schools preach and things like that, and the level of competition they're going to be facing. I mean, hey, nobody, no matter what sport it is, nobody wants to get out there and know they're going to get waxed before the game is played. If you're a soccer player and you're going to lose 9-0, that stinks. Or if you're a basketball player and you're going to lose by 60 points, that stinks. If you can find teams in the league that are going to be more on par with the level of play that your athletes have now and moving forward, that's a good thing, I think.
Well, I think, yeah, those are all good points. And talking with Revere over the years too, Phil, that's one of their laments was they couldn't get athletes to come out to play. And, it was tough in the GBL, but it was tougher in the NEC. So they went back to the GBL, and it makes sense. And the fact that this stuff can be fluid and flexible, I kind of like that idea that, after 5-10 years or whatever, you reassess the situation and maybe you can do something different. That's
I mean, it's great to think of, in this instance, English and classical as, in the NEC since the mid-'70s, great league representatives. That's all true. But things change, and just to cling to the past for the sake that it's tradition or history is doing a disservice to the current student athlete. And we all know that winning begets winning. Kids want to be part of a winning program. If you see your softball team is 3-17 every year, unless you really, really love the game, are you really going to be like, I'm going to go out and play so I can get my brains bashed in by, Peabody or Danvers or Gloucester or whatever? That's not fun. That's not why you play sports.
Well, it was fun talking to the Amesbury boys soccer coach this week. They won their first game, their league game in 10 years. And so, yeah, and
it happens.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, so let me switch directions here. Nick G, soccer, I don't know. The season is almost over now. We don't have Thanksgiving football to look forward to, but give me a little bit of a summary on what happened this week with your coverage.
Well, we got some teams that are pretty much wrapped up. We got some teams that have 2 or 3 games left. We got one team I know of, the Prep. They got their conference tournament coming up. They earned a bye in that one, so that's exciting. They'll be playing, I believe, Monday, right, Phil? Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah, Monday afternoon. Well, Monday at 5, I think, yeah.
So St. John's Prep will go into that without a loss on the year. They do have a couple ties, but they've been terrific, so they got a real shot at winning that thing. Poor Bishop Fenwick, both their soccer teams won't be able to compete in their conference tournaments. And
correction.
Both,
correction. That was changed today. They
really?
will play. They will play, yes.
Well, there you go. That's great news.
Yes.
Breaking news.
Yeah, there you go.
Breaking news. Yeah, so, I mean, both the girls and the boys soccer teams there were on, long unbeaten streaks. I think the boys ended the season with 13 or 14 straight games without a loss. Couple ties in there as well, and then the girls, same thing. So they're both competing. That's got to be, they got to be ecstatic hearing that news that they can actually play now, because they were both on a roll. Then we got, the NEC. They're wrapping up play. It's been a weird season in the NEC. Like we alluded to earlier, Saugus had just gotten out of the red. I caught them in their first game earlier this week.
That game against Peabody was their first game?
That was their
first
game.
I didn't even realize that. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty good effort for them in their first game. I guess they had been practicing. They were allowed to practice a little bit, but they couldn't play games. So, but the NEC's been weird. You had Peabody miss a bunch of time. You had Beverly lose some players. You had Marblehead miss a bunch of time.
Danvers boys miss some time.
Danvers, yeah. So it's just some teams have played 10 to 12 games. Some teams have played, half that. But it's been a fun season. The general consensus that I'm getting is, however many games they play, they're just happy to be out there at all.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. What about the effect of Masco? I mean, Masco boys are still crushing it in soccer, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very talented. They did have a tie against Beverly, so that was their first blemish in the new NEC. But then they came back and beat them yesterday, 6-3, or should I say Thursday? We're recording this on Friday,
Yep.
So they exploded, kind of made some adjustments, it seems, and but Beverly's got a good team too. Just talking to some of the coaches around, this kid Nick Braganca, and Nick, you saw him earlier this year get hurt, but he's back in the fold, and he's just a tremendous player, maybe one of the more talented players in the NEC. So Beverly's been fun to watch. Peabody's got some really good goal scorers. Kyle Joyce is still leading the area in goals, and he's played half the games as some of these other teams, which is pretty crazy.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a good season, competitive. It would be really competitive and really interesting to see in a normal season, because I think a lot of these teams are evenly matched in the NEC. And then who we missing? We got Essex Tech has had quietly a really strong season. I think they only have a couple of losses. And they will they be competing? They'll be competing in a conference tournament as well, I believe, right, Phil?
Yes. Yep.
Essex
They
Tech.
have the Commonwealth Athletic Conference.
Yeah.
matchup.
So, and they're, they're fighting for that too. I think they're going to be right there in the mix. A couple other strong teams in their conference too, but they're right there. They got a lot of talent this year. So it's been a good year on the North Shore for soccer, despite all the, strangeness to it, I guess, so to speak.
I should point out too that Friday's edition of the Salem News, in the sports section, you guys have tons and tons of stats about soccer in the area, and that's fabulous. I got to meet via the phone Riley DeGilio and Livy Anderson, the two captains at Danvers High School.
Yeah.
And man, and they're committed to Division I schools. Good Lord, I mean,
Both going on, yeah.
Yeah, and so the talent is still being able to be recognized,
right,
despite the shortness of the season and so on.
Yeah, Willie wrote a nice piece on Anderson the other day, her goalkeeping exploits for Beverly High, and you mentioned DeGilio from Danvers. Great game the other day between Danvers and Masconomet girls. Both teams were undefeated. Danvers wins it with about 11 minutes to go. They're still undefeated. Jimmy Hinchin, head coach, won his 350th game recently. So it's been a good year for NEC girls soccer.
Yeah, you talk to him, it's like a rookie coach. He's so excited about the season.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a good way to put it.
But that's great, and that that brings us to Nick C up in Gloucester. I saw that, I think it was the Boston Globe had an article on the Rileys recently, Lauren Riley and Dad Don Riley, and girls field hockey is finished up, but they finished on a high note.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they started off 2-1 in the first half of the season, then ran the table the second half. They won their last 5 games to finish 7-2-1. I believe that's the schedules aren't all uniform, so I wouldn't call them second place in the NEC, but they had the second best record in the NEC this season. So, they finished, really strong. Mia Salah came back, finished her career as, she was already the all-time leading scorer heading into the season. She only played 6 games this year, but she got 6 goals and 6 assists in 6 games, and she finishes up with a program record 71 goals. I think that's 13 ahead of the next highest, and 124 points in her career. So she kind of shattered every scoring record that school's had. And it was all coming into this season. She just added on to it all this year. But yeah, they've been excellent. And also, over in Rockport and Manchester, Essex, each school got 2 Cal championships, which is nice to see. We mentioned Rockport Golf a couple weeks ago. They won the Cal Baker, and the boys soccer team won the Cal Baker outright. They got it done 4-1-5, kind of an odd record. They were competitive against everyone. The Cal Kinney was really strong this year with Newburyport, Linfield, and North Reading sharing the title, and Rockport tied all 3 of them. So that kind of was what tilted it in their favor, and it was a 0-0 draw with Linfield this past Monday that clinched the title outright. Broke the streak of Manchester Essex. Manchester Essex had won the previous 4, and now Rockport got theirs this season. They've been outstanding defensively. Goalie Camden Wheeler and sweeper back Austin Matus are they'd be the best play, among the best players on any team. Doesn't matter Rockport, North Reading, Newburyport. They're just stud players that are standouts. And
I saw them twice this year against two of our teams. I think Hamilton and Ipswich.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I mean, Dave Curley still has the enthusiasm of a rookie coach.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been there for how long, Nick?
Over 40 years. He's had 2 stints as head coach. But he's been, coaching for years plus.
I remember when I was older than Dave Curley.
No, he's great on the sidelines. And, what I noticed too, Nick, is they have a lot of young talent. I thought they had some really good younger players as well. Sophomores and even a couple freshmen, I want to say, that were rotating in and out. And, that program is going to be strong for a couple of years to come, I think.
It is. That's what's, impresses me the most about, watching Coach Curley in action. I mean, Rockport is the smallest school in the Cal by a long shot, and he empties his bench every game. I mean, everybody plays that's on that roster. Every game he finds, roles for everybody. And I just think that's, amazing where, just by the sheer size of his school, he's not going to have the same type of depth that most of the other schools have. And they still make it work, and they go deep into their bench.
Hey, going back to field hockey for a second, who is the Gloucester goalie?
That'd be Mia Wheeler.
Okay. She was drawing raves the other day from Phil McGinnity, who's the Danvers coach, when Gloucester shut out Danvers 1-0. I guess she made like 18 saves or something like that in that game, and Danvers had a ton of great chances. But it sounds, at least from what Phil McGinnity was saying, that Wheeler was a huge difference in that game.
Yeah, she was, and she was a big difference last year. Gloucester upset Danvers in the tournament, and Wheeler saved a penalty stroke early in that game when Danvers was dominating, and it kind of turned the whole tide of the game. Just a real nice, left pad save on a rocket of a shot. She was all over it, and it really just changed the whole tide of that game. Gloucester ended up winning 2-0 at the end.
You guys are encyclopedias. I mean, that's unbelievable. Nick Curcuru, one more question. Gloucester boys soccer have done well this year too, haven't they?
Yeah, and ironically, they're the only team in my area that's still playing, and they have half a season to go. So, all those schools that Nick Giannino mentioned, that was who was on Gloucester's schedule. So they've kind of been on ice for a couple weeks. They're back in action this afternoon against Peabody. So I just got a tweet from GHS Athletics. I was seeing if that game was still on this afternoon, but it is still on. Friday afternoon against Peabody. They haven't played in a couple weeks, and then they got 4 games coming up next week. So they're going to finish the year with a crowded schedule.
I want to ask Phil, Stacey a second here, maybe all you guys too. Just take a quick look at the pros on the passing of Tommy Heinsohn, because I know Tommy Heinsohn had, I believe, an art gallery up in Gloucester, or at least or Rockport. A lot of art.
Right in Rockport, yeah, right off of Baskin Neck in Rockport.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people didn't know about him. But Gary Larrabee has a piece on Tommy Heinsohn. I think it's in Friday's Salem News, and just maybe a reflection on that kind of character that we have here in local sports. Because Phil, even now the Salem the newspaper group, you get guys going to the pro games. You go to the Bruins games. I think Mac goes to the Patriots games and stuff. So to cover these guys and then to know them in their later years, it sort of fleshes out who they are, and they stay in the area. So I don't know, Phil, maybe a reflection on Tommy Heinsohn or anything else with the pros?
Yeah, I mean, it is cool when you get to know guys a little bit once they've retired and they settle in the area. Certainly we know a few guys like that that played at the highest level, and whether they were from the area, they settled here, whatnot. I can't claim to have known Tommy. I've seen him around town a few times, but of course I remember him. I don't remember him as a player, but when I was real young, first starting as a sports fan, he coached the Celtics, against Phoenix in the '76 finals, and I think of this big guy with a Jersey accent and the plaid pants with the loud sports jacket, and then he became the number one color guy for CBS on those great NBA telecasts of the early to mid '80s. Celtics Lakers, Celtics Sixers. That was Tommy on the call. Dick Stockton on the play-by-play with Tommy. And you hear people say that he bleeds green and he's Mr. Celtic and all that. I mean, I think a lot of that is true. He carried that with him forever. You know, he never wore another team's colors, never coached with another team or anything like that. And, you know, it's a huge loss, not only for the Celtics and for basketball, but for Boston sports in general. He was an icon, and while never the best on his team or in his league, like some other greats of our, you know, we're very fortunate to have so many great players, you know, whether it's Williams or Russell or Bird or Brady or, you know, whoever, you know, Tommy was beloved by generations of people from his time as a player to now, you know, last 30 years in the Celtics broadcast. So that'll definitely be felt as a loss.
Nick G, any thoughts about the pros, the locals, or whatever?
I just want to touch on Tommy real quick too. For me, he was always, you know, Mike Gorman's partner when they called the Celtics games, and that's who I grew up listening to. I think if you weren't a Celtics fan, you might not appreciate him as much because he's such a homer. But we loved him here in Boston, and you know, I had some interactions with him at the Garden a couple times. I would see him in the dining area before games or in the elevator or whatever, and he was always very nice and, you know, would answer any questions you had. So I think I respected him more than anything else. And one of the things that people don't really talk about is, and obviously, you know, he was so dedicated to the Celtics and to his line of work, but he was announcing games up until last year, and he probably wouldn't have announced games this year if he could have. So he really, you know, worked and was with the Celtics organization right till the very last day, which I think is pretty cool. You can't say that about a lot of people. So, and same thing with Alex Trebek, who we didn't get to talk about, but he was still filming Jeopardy up to 2 weeks ago, I think. So it's pretty crazy that we lost both of them in the same week. And yeah.
Who was the greatest game show announcer of all time?
I mean, you gotta, I don't know. Who would you go? In my lifetime, Alex Trebek, for sure.
No, when you're saying Alex Trebek, I say that's the answer. Who is the greatest game show?
What's the question?
What is,
answer?
who is?
Okay.
Hey, just one more thing, if I could, I wanted to mention senior on the Beverly High girls soccer team. I know Matt Williams wrote about them today and how outstanding they've been in front of Sydney Anderson, the goalie. You know, you mentioned players like Sophia Hemsey, Lily Cook, Nora DeVitt. I want to mention too Ariane Chanda. She's a senior defenseman for Beverly, plays all the time, plays every minute of every game. Great player, terrific attitude out there. And, you know, on great teams, I think sometimes those defensive players can get lost in the shuffle a little bit if you're not the goaltender. But
Everything froze. Okay. Hopefully it'll come back. Oh boy. Okay, come on.
how to be in next. Hogan, is he playing?
I lost you for a
in the
second.
mix this year.
All right, there we go. I lost you guys for a second. Nick C, any final thoughts here? Or stuff coming up in the Times?
Yeah, I just recognize, Manchester Essex Field Hockey also took down the Cal, and they took down the Cal outright. They had the best record in the entire Cape Ann League. So they crushed it. They lost their first game of the season. I think it was their first Baker loss in 6 years, and then I think
that came to Ipswich, right?
Yeah, Ipswich beat them. And they went 8-0-1 the rest of the way. They beat Newburyport, who was the Cal Kinney champ. So they had the best record overall in the Cal, and that's their sixth straight Cal Baker. So they're at the top where they usually are.
And you know what? One of those ties was actually the Hamilton-Wenham, which didn't have any wins, but had a shocking tie with Manchester Essex, a scoreless tie, I believe. So that was
you never know what's
that was like
happen.
a victory for Hamilton-Wenham.
Oh, big time, absolutely. Yeah, so Manchester Essex has a lot of firepower, and they kept them off the board, which is shocking.
Yeah.
So Phil, do we still have plenty of high school sports to cover in the next week or so in the Salem News?
I wouldn't say plenty, but we have enough to get us through another week, certainly. Yeah. It seems to me as though the teams that are still playing, Rick, are Beverly, Peabody, Marblehead, Masco, Nick. They have soccer left?
Yeah, they got a few games left.
Okay. Saugus, Salem, prep soccer, and Fenwick will be in that CCL Cup. So, yeah, we got another week's worth of stuff, and then we head to Thanksgiving week where we got a couple of surprises that we can maybe talk about next week. And
cool.
knock on wood, we'll have a winter season. So
I got one more note for you guys. We haven't talked about golf in a while, and I'm sure you guys don't talk about golf much when I'm not on here, but their season's over. Everyone's done with golf. Can't imagine playing much golf out there anyway at this point, especially with the darkness. But they did host the state championship. It wasn't through MIAA this year. Obviously, they didn't have that tournament, but it was through the National High School Golf Association or Coaches Association. And we had 3 golfers qualify for nationals, which is pretty cool. That'll be out at Pinehurst next June. So we had Aiden LeBlanc from St. John's Prep, Alex Landry from St. John's Prep, and Ethan Doyle from Salem, who started off with a double bogey and then went even par the rest of the way, which was pretty cool. So congrats to those 3. It's a big accomplishment. There was a lot of golfers in that field, a lot of good golfers, and that's going to be a great experience for those guys going down to Pinehurst.
Well, you are watching the Masters this weekend, yes?
Yeah, I think you got cut out when I asked about that. I just asked who you guys had winning the Masters this year.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I know. Who's your pick?
Let's see. I went with Paul Casey, and he was the day 1 leader. So
Okay.
We'll see. I mean, usually the day 1 leader doesn't hang on, but you never know.
What about DeChambeau or whatever his name is? The guy that's
DeChambeau, I do like him a lot. He's an innovator, hits the ball a mile. And I also like Xander Schauffele. I think he's pretty good. And who wouldn't want to see Tiger win again?
Okay, so we opened up the can of worms. Nick C, and then we'll let Phil have the final guess. Who are you picking?
who am I picking?
Well, let's do Nick C first, and then we'll end with you, Phil.
Okay.
Say my wife was in a little pool at her work. I picked Bryson DeChambeau for her. So I was just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not I know the big names in golf. I'm a fraud golf fan. I know DeChambeau, Casey, all the guys at the top of the McIlroy, Dustin Johnson. So I'd say probably DeChambeau, Koepka, Dustin Johnson. They always seem to be in the mix at all these majors. So
Yep.
I'm going to take one of those guys.
I like Vijay Singh. He's going to come out of nowhere.
Vijay?
Thing.
I don't think he's competing this year.
Well, he's not competing. He got an exemption for the first 2 rounds. He's going on.
Maybe he
Saturday.
is. I'm not sure. There is a 62-year-old Larry Mize competing, and he shot 200 par yesterday. Tied Bryson DeChambeau. So
I love it. I love it. All right.
There you go.
I'm going with McIlroy, but what do I know? Hey, geez, this has been great. I hope Bill lets me do this again. I thank you one and all. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. And by all means, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks.